Hey everybody, so tonight I wanted to go over a new topic that is being empowered by the Red for Ed movement, and it is the NEA's resolution I-50 for, and it is specifically, it says white supremacy culture, okay? So I will post it, but I'm going to read some of it to you. The National Education Association believes that in order to achieve racial and social justice, educators must acknowledge the existence of white supremacy culture as a primary root cause of institutional racism, structural racism, and white privilege. And then, let's see. Additionally, the association believes that the norms, standards, and organizational structures manifested in white supremacy culture perpetually exploit and oppress people of color and serve as detriments to racial justice. Further, the invisible racial benefits of white privilege, which are automatically conferred irrespective of wealth, gender, and other factors, severely limit opportunities for people of color and impede full achievement of racial and social justice. Therefore, the association will actively advocate for social and educational strategies fostering the eradication of institutional racism and white privilege perpetuated by white supremacy culture. Okay, so that's in their handbook as a resolution. Next, they also, in this last year, adopted a new business item. So it's item 11. That says the NEA will incorporate the concept of white fragility. If you're not sure what that means, it is when they say when a white person is defensive when confronted by information about racial inequality and injustice. And their rationale that they have down stated that white supremacy culture has fashioned a social norm insulating white people from the impact of racial stress, which then depresses the ability to tolerate social stress. All right. So, in other words, the NEA wants to teach or indoctrinate your kids of every race to believe that everything bad in society is because of white people. Okay. And that we are a system of oppressors and white people oppress everyone. They also want to eliminate anyone that has an opinion that disagrees with that in any way. So they want to get rid of that. So a couple things I pulled up. They have the NEA has a ton of information out there on this topic and their push for what they call social justice. A couple things that stuck out to me. The NEA today says that white supremacy is a cancer of institutionalized racism that exists but is more invisible now. So if something's invisible, is it there? NEA leadership development had a workshop emphasizing intersectionality, oppression, and white privilege, okay? So if you're not sure about intersectionality, that is a term coined by a lady by the name of Kimberly Crenshaw. And her definition of that is it is the overlap of various social identities, race, gender, sexuality, and class that contributes to the specific type of systematic oppression and discrimination experienced by an individual. So basically, it rates your identities and puts them all together to basically tell you how oppressed or how privileged you are, okay? And if you are white, Christian, and female, but definitely male, then you are completely privileged and you are the biggest oppressor. And you're the reason for all of the things that anyone may have trouble with. So they want to teach this in our schools. Okay, so for Indiana. All right, just in 2018, Jennifer McCormick and the Indiana Department of Education announced a new landmark ethnic study course and standards for Indiana schools. All right, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to post all of those for you, but I'm going to read a couple of them that come directly from the NEA on their stance on all of this. Okay, so standard 1-2 says that for Indiana academic standards ethnic studies, students will identify and analyze their own social, ethnic, racial, and cultural identities and examine societal perceptions and behaviors related to their own identities. Okay, so look at your own identities and examine how they have contributed to things in our society. Specifically, how have you oppressed our society? Standard 3-2 says students assess how social policies and economic forces offer privilege or systematic oppressions. When you go to these standards on the Indiana Department of Education, it also offers resources that they have for how to implement these ethnic studies into our classrooms. Okay, so I went to them, clicked on the resources that they offer, and right off the top, of course, it is an entire report from, you guessed it, the NEA on academic and social value of ethnic studies. Okay, they also reference on how to implement this in your classroom, teaching tolerance, social justice standards from the Southern Poverty Law Center. Okay, so yeah, it comes directly from the NEA. And again, they believe that anything that's gone wrong in our society is because of white people. And if you read all of their stuff, that's all it talks about. So, all right. So for Indiana, for our standards, so who other than Jennifer McCormick was involved in making these standards that are not yet it is a standard in our curriculum and it has to be offered, but it is not required for each student. But that is coming. That is their next thing they want to push, is make this required for each student in Indiana. One of the people that actually developed these course standards, his name is David Suzuki. He's the director of Equity Institute on Race, Culture, and Transformative Action at IUPUI. He developed the state's course standards, and he says that this could help counteract the negative perceptions that white Indiana people have. Okay, so apparently he knows what everyone thinks. I actually clicked on the Institute for IUPUI that he is the director of and found this to be kind of interesting. They have something called the White Racial Literacy Project going on. Actually, it's going on, I believe, right now. And it's been going on for the last couple months. They have speakers come and talk to the students about how privileged white people are, and that if they don't think they are, even if they think they are friends and supportive of people that are not white, basically they're wrong, and they need a class to teach them about it. So they're already teaching this at our colleges. One of the I'm gonna pull up this real quick. One of the speakers there says Dr. Allie Michaels. So this was back on November 14th. Says IUPUI White Racial Literacy Project Speaker Series, and it says, what do white people need to know about race? Learning about race and whiteness can be confusing, contentious, and frightening, particularly for white people. And in one of the articles that they cite on there, I know this is college, but it all trickles down, and it is from the same person that wrote the standards for our public education system. One of the articles said flat out that we needed to change the word racism to whiteness. So stop saying racism, call it whiteness. All right, and the other one that I wanted to point out that worked on getting this into our schools and creating this study and standards for Indiana. Her name is Hilda Kendrick, okay? And she is one of the NEA's Indiana State Teachers Association activists. And I thought this quote from her on one of the NEA articles about Indiana implementing this into our curriculum was a little scary. And then, so I quote from Hilda Kendrick, "If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. It was an astonishing and historic victory given Indiana's history of racism." Okay. So I'm going to put I have a lot of stuff on this that they are trying to push, not trying, they've got it in our schools, and it's only going to become more. So again, they want everyone to know any problem that you have in your life is because of a white person, white supremacy. They want to teach our kids. They want to teach, for instance, my daughter, who I've never taught to ever look at someone by race, ever, nor would I tolerate that. But they want to teach her that she is part of the problem. They want to teach that for all of our kids. So it's really hard to believe that they want to indoctrinate our kids by telling them that a race is bad, and that the cause of any issues you may have are from white supremacy. But the far left, who we know is pushing this, does like to alarm and divide in order to gain power. So it's pretty scary, and it does not belong in our schools. I just ask, if you're not a member of our group, please join our group. More members, more recognition, and we're really fighting hard to protect the children and parental rights and stop the indoctrination in our schools. So tomorrow's Wednesday. Wear purple and have a good night.